the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the M-E-T-S Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell, give 'em a hand, and let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the M-E-T-S Mets of New York town, of New York town.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets and Rob, and another Mets Hot Stove live right here on the channel, running solo here tonight on Mets Hot Stove. So you got me and my big mouth over the next hour talking about the topics that you see in front of you. But first off, before I even get to those topics, we got a couple of news things that the Mets have done over the last couple of hours, today actually. Max Kranick, a former Pittsburgh Pirates starting pitcher who had Tommy John surgery of June of 2022, pitched a few games last year with a little bit of success, under 3 ERA. He is a starter. He was one of the highly touted prospects in the Pittsburgh system before he got hurt. Even before he got hurt, he wasn't pitching well, but he was expected to be a big-time pitcher. He is a guy that is another depth arm that is going to be in the minor league system for the Mets, starting pitching, plethora of starting pitching that we're going to have in the depth and actual, in the minor leagues as well. So that's going to be something to look at, because he's looked really good in his workouts, and he was supposed to be a top-line starting pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Max Kranick, the Mets have claimed him off waivers from the Pirates. And Danny Young agrees to a minor league deal with the invite to spring training for the Mets. He pitched 11 games for the Braves with an under 3 ERA as well. He's a lanky lefty. He's like I would say he's like a Jerry Blevins type of body build, where he is a lefty. He's not a big hard thrower, but he's funky the way he throws. He throws a lot of off-speed pitches. So he is another lefty that is agreed to a minor league deal. So there's about 720, if you're not counting, of Mets minor league deals for the bullpen. And we all know that Suter went to the Reds, and there is a couple of other guys out there to see if the Mets are going to get. But the last thing is that they had to make room on the roster on the 40-man, so they designated for assignment Cooper Hummel, who is signed to a minor league deal earlier in the offseason, and that's where we are right now. So today, we got a report, an article about the unfortunate situation of Ronny Mauricio, that the Mets tried everything they can to not make him play in winter ball just to protect him from, an injury. Unfortunately, that happened, but we found out that because his agent and family members were dealing with his finances when he signed his international deal, when the Mets signed him internationally, they took almost all of his money, and he was basically broke. And that's so sad, but you know what? It happens a lot with the international players. that they have people that they don't really know and agents that they thought they trust and family members that they thought they trusted with their finances. And, he's basically, broke and he needed that money from winter ball. That is sad to see. And, people are like, oh, Cohen should have stepped in. Cohen should have done that. If you do that with every player that's on your roster, like there's a lot of minor league guys that are making nothing and are, living paycheck to paycheck. So it's unfortunate what happened, but it's not the Mets' fault. It's not Steve Cohen's fault. He trusted people that did him wrong. And it's unfortunate that he has to play winter ball to make some money here, but it sucks. And it's unfortunate because he also got hurt as well, which is even more unfortunate. But listen, what can we do at this point? Except, give him our best. Hopefully he comes back healthy and becomes a star in this league and makes a lot of money and deals with better people in his life. We'll see with that. All right, so here we go. Mets and Alonso. We know arbitration was yesterday. Only Phil Bickford, who the Mets traded for from the Dodgers, who was in the bullpen last year, later in the season during the deadline. Phil Bickford is probably going to be in this bullpen. He is the only one going to arbitration hearing with the Mets. Everybody else signed, the Drew Smiths, the Alonsos, the Hausers, those guys. Everybody that was arbitration eligible was able to get the arbitration settled, no issues. Pete Alonso was basically a ho-hum. I thought there was going to be a real issue. This was go to a hearing because there was a lot of projections out with Pete Alonso that he can get $22-23 million, and they both settled on 20 and a half. And that is good for the Mets, and that is good for Pete Alonso. And I think a quiet, no back and forth, bad, I guess, vibe with this arbitration. I think this is a good sign because right now, until probably opening day, is probably the best opportunity to work out an extension if there is going to be, and Boras will work out an extension with Pete Alonso. And again, we always talk about this. The player is the main driving force in this. He is Boras's client. That's his client. That's his agent. But Boras has to listen to his player. If Pete really wants to be here, and again, the way this arbitration went down with Pete Alonso, and it was very quiet, so it all seemed like everything went smoothly in this arbitration process with them. This is a good sign because they clearly talk numbers when it comes to arbitration, and I would be shocked if they didn't talk numbers in regards to an extension. So let's just see what happens here because this is the prime time to do extensions now until probably opening day is when, because I don't think any negotiations is going to happen once the season starts. So that's a good sign. The fact that there's been a lot of crazy rumors, again, believe them or not, about Salicata and WFAN talking about here Pete Alonso would rather be a Yankee or a Cub. Again, who knows where he got that source from. Andy Martino around Christmas time, I know Explosive, I was just going to bring that up, that he wants to enter free agency. That's fine, but I think if the Mets offer him a really good offer through an extension, it'll be hard to take it because, listen, going into a contract year, there's always a risk of injury, of not having a good season, and you can have a lot of problems going into free agency. Even if Pete Alonso if he has a bad season going into his free agent year, I still think a lot of teams probably he probably won't get the $250 to $300 million contract, but he'll get the $200 million contract that a lot of people are expecting. But it is going to be very interesting to see what's this process going to be, because all you're going to hear from Met fans from now until opening day is about Pete Alonso and an extension. You got Evan Roberts not shaving, not cutting his beard until Pete Alonso signs an extension. You got so many other craziness going on. Again, believe what you want to believe. The fact of the matter is he's under contract for one more year, right? Nothing anybody can do about it. David Stern's already said he's not trading him. Now, at the deadline, if the Mets are not good, it'd be stupid not to trade him, because if you're not going to negotiate during the season, which I hardly doubt Boras and Pete Alonso are going to negotiate during the season, if the Mets are doing bad and the deadline comes, the Mets have a lot of one-year deals, a lot of expiring contracts. A lot of guys are going to be free agents after this year. They're going to get traded. You might as well get assets for them. You can have a, under the table type of, hey, Pete, we're going to trade you, but we really want you. In the short term, we're going to help us get an assets, but we're really going to go after you in free agency and do everything we can to get you back. That can happen. So let's just see what happens, and let's not read every report thinking that it is true. So we'll see. I know people are talking about Stroman wanting to be a Yankee, and everybody went. This is how naive, and there's probably some Yankee fans in this chat right now. How Yankee fans are like, oh, he always wanted to be a Yankee. You saw he posted a picture of his father and him and his mother, with a Yankee jersey on. Like, this is how narrow-sighted Yankee fans are. When he got traded to the Mets, he posted a similar picture with him with a Met shirt on when he was a kid. Like, he grew up in New York. You grew up in the 90s. There was shirts and Met shirts and Yankee shirt, and he had a picture of his father holding him with his mother with a Met shirt on. So he can wanted to be a Yankee all he wanted. If he really wanted to be a Yankee, he could have done that a couple of years ago as well, and he did not as well. So, and he badmouthed the team that he really wanted to go to a couple of years ago. So, I mean, let's relax on that situation here. And again, I see it as this when it comes to Pete Alonso. Let's get back to the important stories here. I think Pete Alonso is going to be a Met long term. I think all this nonsense that, the Mets are doing wrong by Pete Alonso. No, they're not. They're being smart in this situation. Because if a team's going to have an extension with a player, they are not going to do an extension where they're not going to get a little bit of a discount. Teams don't do extensions with a player that they have under control unless they're getting discounts. That's why teams do that. If they're always going to get, bent over a barrel and overpay during an extension, teams would never do it. That's what an extension is, right? The Yankees tried to give a fair offer to Aaron Judge before opening day last year so they can get someone of a discount. Judge was like, no, I'm betting on myself, which is fine. That's his right. And he had a great season, an historic season, and he got paid for it. There's nothing wrong with what the Mets are doing, and there's nothing wrong with what Pete Alonso is doing. That's the fact. Well, Jose Lopez, again, if Alonso gets traded, so be it. Like, everybody's got to get their emotions out of being a fan when it comes to stuff like that. If the Mets are really bad in the first half, what would happen if the Mets don't re-sign Alonso during next offseason and they didn't trade him at the deadline and got nothing for him and he leaves? Now, you hurt yourself in two aspects. You lose Alonso and you got nothing for him. You see how stupid that is? In just plain baseball business, it's stupid. Right? And I can care less about when the Mets traded Seaver. And I know how many fans said, I'm not going to be a Mets fan anymore. Yes, you are. If they trade Pete Alonso or he doesn't sign and go somewhere else, you'll still be a Mets fan. I can guarantee that. Anybody who says they won't are liars. And I'm saying that to everybody. You are a liar. You might be mad, you might be frustrated, but if the Mets the following year are having a really good season and are playoff contenders and are looking like a team that can actually go far into the playoffs and win a championship, guess what? Your ass would be in front of the TV or your ass would be at Citi Field in one of those seats during the season and the playoff games. So don't tell me that if Pete Alonso's out there, you're not going to be Met fans. You are not a 5-year-old. 5-year-olds, I get. That's all they know is Pete Alonso. 5-year-olds look up and, make them as like big, important people in their lives. When you're a 30, 40, 50-year-old guy and you're going to tell me that you're not going to be a fan of the team that you grew up watching your whole life, and then one guy leaves, right? I heard a lot of Met fans saying, "Oh, if Jackie Grom's not a Met fan, not a career Met, you're not going to be a Mets fan anymore." Yeah, how fast did that change? No, Jose, it's not about the money being there or not. The fact of the matter is that you also have, you can't just give every player, overpay for every player to come to your team. Because if you do that, then you're going to have the agents, the players saying, well, let's just go to the Mets because they're going to just overpay. They're not going to care. You can't run a business like that. You can't run a team like that. No matter, before Steve Cohen, the Yankees didn't do that. The Dodgers didn't do it. They didn't do that either. We act like all these teams were overpaying for a lot. Now, is there certain players to make sure you get them? Absolutely. Juan Soto, there shouldn't be a number that scares the Mets away next year, or any team that goes after him. If it's the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Angels, the Giants, whoever is going after Juan Soto next offseason, there shouldn't be a number that scares you away. But guess what? One team's going to get him. And the reason why one team's going to get him is because that one team is going to give the most money and the most years. It's just that simple. He is not taking a discount to stay with the Yankees. He's not. Because if that's the case, he would sign an extension already. That's the point. The fact of the matter is, if the fan base, we tend to forget that Steve Cohen can throw all the money in the world at Pete Alonso or any player. We've seen this already this offseason. The player also has to want to come or stay here. This is also in the hands of Pete Alonso as well. And now with Scott Boras, anything can happen. Scott Boras has an itchy trigger finger. He does not care about loyalty, fans. He cares about getting the most money for his client. That's it. If the Pittsburgh Pirates come running and give $400 million to Pete Alonso for 10 years, he's going to Pittsburgh. And if you don't believe that, you're stupid and naive, because no player is taking less money in free agency unless they go back to their original team, except Pete Alonso and Juan Soto. Because apparently Pete Alonso is not taking somewhat of a discount. I'm not saying to lowball him and saying throw him a 7-year, $150 million deal. No, I'm not saying that. But if the Mets offer him an extension, hey, listen, we'll give you 8 years, $200 million, and he declines that, not only did the Mets give a really fair offer, but Pete Alonso turning that down tells me how loyal is he to the team that he supposedly loves, the fan base he truly loves, or the New York nonsense that he claims to love. The batting gloves, I love New York. All the cool things that he does with charities, that's great. But the fact of the matter is, they're not loyal. Can we take a step back and realize these players are not loyal? Most of them. Now, I think Pete Alonso is a good guy. I truly believe that he talks on both sides of his mouth. I don't think he says everything he believes. I think he likes to say to the media what Met fans like to hear because he is a showman, and that's okay. That's okay. But the fact of the matter is that Pete Alonso is not taking a discount to come back to the Mets. I want you to think about that for a second, because of the fact that he is their best player. We all understand that. But why would the Mets overpay when they don't have to? Pete Alonso, if he wants an extension, you got to give a little bit of a discount. I'm not talking about a $50, $60 million, $70 million discount, but a $20, $30 million discount. If the Mets offer you 7 years, $200 million, you're not going to really sit down and think about taking that offer. That's a pretty damn good deal. You would be the highest paid first baseman in baseball with that number. You see the problem with that? The fact of the matter is, that's the problem because of the fact that he hired Boras, which already tells you that he's looking for the most money, which is fine. He can look for the most money when he goes to free agency, but you can't sit down with the Mets and talk extension and not think that the Mets are going to look for a little bit of a discount. All teams do. Teams don't do extensions unless they're going to get someone of a discount because they'll just walk out of the room. That's just simple business. Easy, you're first off for 8 years, $260 million, not as an extension. No, I wouldn't do that right away. Sorry. Because I would be shocked if he gets any more than that on the open market. Just saying. All right, let me just check the comments room. Jose says Mets mainland should prepare themselves to boycott the first 40 games. Jose, did you boycott the first 40 games when the Wilpons owned the team, or did that not matter? What you really think Stearns and Steve Cohen is going to be like, oh, the respect of the fan base? They have the respect of the fan base. Just because you're not understanding the fact that this is a business, and the fact of the matter is, Steve Cohen is setting himself up, just like the Dodgers did last year, for the offseason that the Dodgers had this year. That's what the Mets are doing. Because there wasn't a lot of great free agents here where you could say, oh, the Mets missed out. Ohtani was never coming to New York, Mets or Yankees. Yamamoto seemed like he used the Mets and the Yankees to go to the Dodgers. That's the only great free agents. Everybody else is mid-level. Let's be honest about that. If you want to overpay for mid-level starters and 39-year-olds and guys that are middle of the road players, then so be it. But you just because you're rich doesn't mean you're just going to overpay on every single thing. I'm sorry. I don't care how rich you are. You're not going to overpay for something when you don't have to. It's just that simple. Fire blazing. I'm glad you said that. The Mets don't look as bad. People like, oh, this team's a 70-win team. How? They were a 75-win team last year that had Kodai Senga as one of the only pitchers that started the year pitching every fifth or sixth day. Scherzer did it. Verlander did it. Quintana did it. Right? That's the point. We didn't have a rotation that was healthy the entire year in one go-around through a rotation. Not once last year. You had all these type of pitches coming in that was from the minor leagues that nobody heard of. The McGills, the Petersons. Guys that shouldn't have been in this rotation. Cal Ripken, Tony Gwynn, George Brett, yes. And the money was what it is now than it is now. And on top of that, you're talking about Hall of Famers. Right? You're talking about guys. Oh, you named 3 guys out of probably over 5,000 or 6,000 players over a time. So the fact of the matter is, we have to understand with this baseball team. If this rotation, I would say 3/5 of the rotation, say 3 starters out of the 5 stay healthy, it's already better than last year because they didn't have that the entire season. The only time was July, was when you had 3 pitchers that were supposed to be in your rotation go through the order a couple of times before the trade deadline. That's the point. And then on top of that, McNeil always after a bad season has a really good season. If McNeil hits 300, if Pete Alonso does what he does like his entire career and bats 250 like his career average and hits 40-plus home runs and 100 RBIs, if Lindor continues to do what he does, batting 250, 260, 25 home runs, 25, 30 home runs, 90 to 100 RBIs, Nimmo did what he did last year with his best season of his career. Even if he retracts a little bit and hits less home runs, but the average is there, and the leadoff hitter and on base is there. you're already better. Just by that. And that's not including, oh, by the way, we have one of the best closers in baseball. Coming off an injury or not, he's still better than what the Mets had last year because it was only Robertson and Prey. You never had anything other than Robinson. And we lost a lot of games before we even got to Robinson. And that's the problem as well. Well, Joel, you know why Nimmo scares us? Because of his injury history. That's why when Stern says Nimmo's going to left field, you should be happy, Mets fans. They're trying to keep him healthy for a longer period of time, except only for this year. And also, they're setting up for Drew Gilbert, that we'll talk about later in the stream, to play center field next year. Very simple. Very simple. The smart move was to move Nimmo to left field. You got to keep Nimmo healthy. He is our leadoff hitter. He is a spark plug. Yes, he doesn't steal bases. That pisses me off. He's not the greatest center fielder, but he's a great left fielder. With what he's learned from the analytics to become a better defender in center field is only going to make him 10 times better in left field with his speed. Do you know how good this outfield defense is with Nimmo in left, Bader in center? And even if Marte, who has been playing in the Winter League and is looking healthy and playing 9 innings now, that's one of the better outfield defense in baseball. And and that's important. And again, the Mets were terrible defensively last year. I mean, June, they couldn't wait to make an error. Like, that's the problem. Hector from Washington Heights, buddy. Yeah, Hector, no. I heard that conspiracy theory. I know who the hell, Tiki Barber said it. Come on, Hector. I love you, buddy. And look, there's been a lot of problems going on with WFAN with a lot of crazy things. And Salicata, had something to say about that as well. But Hector, listen, buddy, they're not trading Nimmo. And Nimmo's not a tradable contract. Nobody's taking on that contract, especially with the injury history. Let's be honest about that. The Mets would have to pay almost the whole salary to get nothing back. Like, let's be honest about that. The fact of the matter is, bringing Nimmo to left field, I think it's more about Gilbert in 2025, but it also can keep Nimmo healthy a lot more because he doesn't have to run a lot to right center and left center, running into walls. All he has to worry about is going back, going to left center, and going down the line. And that's it. And I like that move. And there was no mistake that the Mets planned, even last year when Billy Epler was still there. The organizational thought process in August and September was to move Nimmo to left field. They started to do that late in the season to keep him healthy. It's a lot of miles running in center field at Citi Field to left center and right center. It takes a lot out of you. And Nimmo was getting beat up throughout the year. Like, you can tell he was fighting through injuries and busting his ass playing all those games. Take a little bit off of him. There's no Nimmo can be better if he feels more 100% throughout the season. Because you saw him slowly breaking down later in the year. He was still excellent. He had his best season of his career. But he was breaking down. You've seen, that he was limping now and then. He just had the bumps and bruises of his season. If you can keep him healthy more in left field and have a little bit more energy, a little bit more, giddy up later in the year, it's only going to help this team moving forward. Hector, I got to get you on one day. I think a lot of people will love Hector from Washington Heights, a known guy on WFAN calling all the time, especially in the overnights with Salicata. One of these days, Hector, I'm going to bring you on and we're going to have a conversation about our Mets. Yeah, and Waldo, you have to remember that too. And even if Alvarez bats 220, say his average is not good, he can still hit 25 to 30 home runs. He can still knock in 70-something RBIs, maybe more. People don't even realize that. And just having whoever might be at third base, say Brett Beatty's at third base, Vientos is at DH, let's say that. You're getting more production probably from Beatty and Vientos than you got in third base and DH over the last 2 seasons with Vogelback and Ruff and Eduardo Escobar. It can't be worse. At the very least, it stays the same, which it won't be probably helpful, but it probably is a little bit better because you probably get a little bit more power from the DH side. So we'll see. Joel, if he does that, Alvarez, my God, then you have possibly 330 home run guys, 30 plus home run guys. And obviously, Alonso will hit a lot more, but you got Lindor, Alonso, Alvarez, and Nimmo hit 25 last year. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. Then again, the Mets hit a ton of more home runs last year than they did in 2022, but they lost 26 more games. They won 26 less games. So we'll see. Well, I already think so because we're going to talk about it later, Hector. If you're going to stick around at the end of the stream, the last topic, Drew Gilbert starts the season in AAA. And when you get to the fifth one, we're going to talk about Jet Williams getting a Major League Spring Training invite, which is very interesting, by the way. Yeah, well, I know why. You see, the problem is people get very emotional with a player. They do it with Pete Alonso. They do it with Nimmo. They did it at the trade deadline where they, cried themselves to sleep until they realized it was the best possible decision the Mets could have made at the deadline, what they did. No committee. You're going to see him in spring training, but he's not going to be a Major League invite. No, not yet. Because he doesn't really have a spot. So it is pointless. Joel, that's him. And he calls the overnights and he tries to get in with BT and Sal every now and then where he can get through the phone calls. All right, Hector, that sounds good. All right, guys, let's go to the next topic, which is interest in Soler. We heard a lot of rumors. Oh, well, Robert Murray, we heard Hector Gomez, guys that, haven't really been right a lot, but they've got some things right. Not a lot, but Hector Gomez is more, with the Latin American players. He has a little bit more info with that situation. I think Jorge Soler has been looking for a 3-year deal, and he probably can't find that. And I think if he would have found a 3-year deal, he would have signed already. So I think that brought Jorge Soler back into the mix for the Mets. Because if it's a 2-year deal, now we're talking. And maybe if he would take a 1-year deal for a little bit more money than what he was going to get with the Marlins before he opted out, it's a possibility. And that's why I think you're hearing the Mets more and more. And when there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of moving parts around here, and I do think the Mets are going to get a DH back. No, I think it's going to be one of the three. It's either going to be Martinez, Turner, or Soler. I think Soler is the best out of all of them just by the bat because he is a little bit younger. He can play a little bit of outfield. And if he can bat that 250 with 30 home runs like he did last year, well, this lineup is looking a lot more potent than it was. So, all right. So Soler, I think it's a possibility. Don't hold your breath. But if he can't get a 3-year deal, a 2-year deal is on the table, and maybe even a 1-year deal for a high AAV than what he was going to get with the Marlins, I think it's also a possibility as well. So let's go to the next one about the bullpen market. The bullpen market is starting to move. Suter went to the Reds. I know a lot of people wanted Brett Suter for the Mets. Paul, he might be a good trade bait. Again, if the Mets don't perform well in the first half, there's a lot of trade pieces here for the Mets. And again, we don't need to talk about that until it gets to that point because we really don't know. Because the Mets have a habit of having good first halves and then falling apart in the second half. So don't be shocked if the Mets have a solid first half where they're right in the mix for, wild card contention at the deadline. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Like the Mets usually have decent first halves. It's usually that 1 month where in the first half where they struggle, which is usually June, but they're usually still in the mix by the trade deadline. I mean, even last year, they were 6.5 games out when they decided to trade Canna, Escobar, Pham, Verlander, Scherzer, all those guys, and Robinson. They were only 6.5 games out, and they were terrible last year. Terrible. So if they're within probably 4 to 6. See, the difference next year is that if the Mets are around 4 to 6 games of a wild card spot, I'm very curious to see what their plan is, because that's in the mix where, you have one good winning streak of 7 out of 10, you're right back in the race. Because I talked about this last year and the last couple of hot stoves. If you look back at the teams that were fighting for the last 2 wildcard spots, the Cubs, the Diamondbacks, teams like that, the Padres, the Giants, teams like that, they had one really, really, really good month where they were about 9-10 games over 500. Every other month were basically 500, a little worse, a little less than 500. It was only one good month, really good month, that kept them in the race going into the deadline and going into the ending part of the season. And that's the point. The fact of the matter is, if the Mets had a 500 June, which is okay at best, they would have been right in the mix at the deadline, and I would have guaranteed the Mets would have probably not been sellers at the deadline. Yep, exactly, Hector. Hector's the mainstay of phone calls of WFN. All right, so I'm just checking the comments real quick. Well, Eddie Rosario is probably out of the question now because of the fact of the Bader signing. Because Eddie Rosario, what are you going to do? Sit him on the bench and play him every now and then? He's not good enough hitter to be a DH, so I don't believe that. All right, so the bullpen market, obviously there's still a lot of guys out there. I still want the Mets to get another lefty, even though they got Danny Young, who is an interesting lefty that the Mets got. Signed to a minor league deal. He pitched for the Braves, 11 games last year, under a 3 ERA. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like a 2.64 ERA in 11 games. He doesn't throw very hard, but he's very quirky. He's a guy that throws a lot of off-speed pitchers, a little bit of a finesse pitcher, not a lot of a hard thrower. He's kind of similar to Brooks Raley, even though Brooks Raley can get it up there a little bit to 93, 94, but this guy is probably throwing around 91, 92. And the other guy is Max Kranick. Again, I remember that when I heard that, I remember that name. I didn't remember what team, but I remember it was like one of those low budget teams, And then I remember, the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was one of their top prospects that was supposed to be a top line starter for them. Had Tommy John in 2022 of June, came back late in AAA last year in 2023, pitched a couple of games and pitched to an under 3 ERA in those games. This is a guy that's going to be a depth piece in the minor leagues, where if there's an injury and he's pitching well, he might jump over Tyler McGill in a start because he's got really good stuff. He throws 96, 97 still. He put out a workout video on Twitter, on his X account, whatever you want to call it. Throwing 90, 95, 96. He was getting it up to 98, 99 when he came up with the Pirates. And he's very young. He's only 25 years old. So this is a guy that's going to be in the minor league system. If that arm stays healthy, he's a guy that I wouldn't be shocked if the Mets need a spot starter or somebody gets hurt in the back end of the rotation, you can push him in there. And you know what? He's a flamethrower. He got a nice slider, got a good changeup. Would be very interesting to see if the Mets put him in the rotation if there's injury concerns. Okay, Philip, congratulations. So what's the problem? I'm curious because you come on my channel, talk your shit and nonsense, yet can you say anything worth anything with baseball? Because the fact of the matter is, any team can spill bullshit. Any fan can spill bullshit and tell you nonsense. I'm not saying this team's winning 95 games. I would be an idiot. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying the Mets have a chance to be in contention for a wild card spot. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Because there's a pretty good chance, just like the last 2 seasons, that an 84, 85 win team is going to be a third wild card. Maybe you get a 90 win second wild card. Maybe. It's funny how people just talk nonsense, yet bring nothing to the channel. At least people in the stream, even if I don't in the chat that I don't agree with, they bring something to the chat. Don't come on my channel and talk shit, and then you run away. Because that's just a waste of my time and everybody else is in the chat. Yeah, I know. He called Michael Kerr racist. Strowman, he called Anthony DeComo a wop. I mean, listen, you get what you get with Strowman. And you know what? He's a ground ball pitcher at Yankee Stadium that should help. He's a solid pitcher. There's nothing. Look, if he would shut his mouth and not do nonsense on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, he's a solid middle of the road pitcher. Oh, I'm wet behind the ears. Oh, okay. So, Philip, you're smart, I guess, right? You're smart. Because you're embarrassing yourself. Because all you're talking about is wet behind the ears. I mean, I just asked you, what is it that you don't like that I said? Because we can have a conversation about it. You won't do it, but let's be honest. Well, Waldo, you know what brings fun with the lineup? Winning, right? I don't care what team you are. The Yankees looked like a team that didn't want to play baseball last year, that couldn't get out of their own way. You look miserable, right? They didn't have fun. When you don't win, you don't have fun. I don't care who you are, especially when you have expectations. The Mets had expectations. They fell on their ass. And they embarrassed themselves. The Yankees lost Judge. They couldn't do anything without Judge. They had a shit season. They embarrassed themselves. And it's funny to me because we talk about teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks, who were in the Dodgers division, who were third best in that division, who made the World Series because they made the run, got that third wild card spot, and had a good run in the postseason. That's it. They weren't spectacular during the season. They were very good in April and parts of May. And then they got hot, a little bit hot in September, and they made the wild card. It's simple. Oh, okay. So you got to call it the month. So you're a child. Okay. So, Philip, listen, go to another channel and talk your nonsense. Because this team, healthy, which every team can say that, right? The team last year won 75 games with no rotation last year all season. Traded their guys at the deadline and still figured out a way to win 75 games. Only six games under 500 with all that happening. With Alonso having a down season average-wise, McNeil having a down season overall. With a lot of other guys not performing well at all. No Marte in this lineup basically all year. You have to look at that as well. And I know Philip's not a Met fan. He's probably a trolling Yankees fan, or he's probably, one of those fake fans that whatever team is good, he'll say, hey, I'm a fan of that team. Because he only shows up when the Mets are bad. Just like, it's funny. Because have you guys, besides Bravos and L, that are Braves fans that always come on my channel, the other Braves fans never show up. The Braves fans, they're one of the best teams in baseball. They got embarrassed again in the playoffs. The Braves fans are nowhere to be found except for JL and Bravos that are huge Braves fans that always come on this channel. They're not afraid because they're honest. And look, can this Mets team be in a disaster? Absolutely it can. Hey, dumbass, this team will beat the Braves. What team? Who? Phil. What? Hey, Bravos. See? Exactly what I'm talking about. See? I know Bravos was here because he doesn't always join the chat, but I know he's listening. But Philip, what team are you? What fan base? What fan are you of a team? Because you're clearly not. I'm 63 and been a Mets fan when you were in diapers. Okay, that's nice. So you're even more of an idiot because you're the idiot that continue to go to Mets games when the Wilpons own the team, and you're probably swiggling your little guns, buying your freaking hot dogs at Shea Stadium at Citi Field, and then going to the games with 10,000 people just like me. All right? I go to games all the time. I'm a season ticket holder. I stay to the ninth inning, end the games. I don't leave. I know you probably do. The fact of the matter is, I don't care how old you are. Don't take away my fandom because you don't like what I say. I don't care. I say what I say, just like you say what you say. You don't have to like me. It's honestly, you don't have to. But to say that I'm talking nonsense, and I guarantee, Philip, your stupid ass, 63 years old, acting like a child in the chat, which you're too old to be acting like this, by the way. You know, act like an adult. That's probably why your wife left you. The fact of the matter is that you don't like younger people actually knowing shit, and then you just watch the games because you're worried about everybody being a 300 hitter, and everybody's got to, you know, screw analytics, screw everything. And I'm an old school baseball fan. I hate analytics. I wish every batter would bat 300. The fact of the matter is, Philip, is that you're 63 years old and you're acting like a child. You got to stop. I work at Costco. I could buy you a bulk of the pens so you don't have to go to the bathroom, so you can actually watch the Mets. Because if they start winning this season and they have a good first half, your old ass would be in the seats watching the games or sitting in front of your TV watching the games, rooting those players on with your negative ass. And look, there's a lot of people on my channel that started with me from the beginning that called me the most negative Mets fan in 2021. Because I'm not afraid to say what's on my mind. Am I always right? Absolutely not. I know that. I mean, shit, if we were always right, why would we watch sports? Because whatever we would be right about, it would be good for our team, no? Okay, Philip, then go away. Why are you on my channel? Look, there's a lot of other content creators that have their own opinions, and I respect a lot of their opinions. But I don't know what's your issue. Do you think the Mets are going to win 95 games this year? I mean, great. If that's your positive attitude, hey, so be it. So be it. If you think this is a 90-win team, 95-win team, hey, listen, I'd be at Citi Field no matter what if they won 65 games. You know why? Because I love to go to baseball games. I love to go to Met games. I travel to go to Mets games. Right? I spend my hard-earned fucking money to go to Mets games. Jay, you ain't kidding, man. It took me a while. All right, so let's go to the next topic. Jesus Luzardo trade. Is this possible? I don't know. I'm not sure. Because I don't, and again, the fact of the matter is Luzardo has a couple of years of control, 3 years to be exact. So that's a good sign because the Mets would trade prospects knowing that they have control over a pitcher. But what are the Marlins looking for? You know, there is a couple of guys expendable in my opinion. You know, I think Parada's expendable. I put it this way. There's two guys that are probably untouchable, Jet Williams and Drew Gilbert. And the Mets already told you that by bumping up Drew Gilbert to AAA and giving a major league invite to spring training for Jet Williams. They just tell you that. Ethan, exactly. There was a report from a Marlins reporter, I think his name is Ethan Mish or Mesh, that went on a radio station in Miami the other day. He went on MLB Network Radio and said that the Marlins are looking, you know, they're listening to everybody. And they need position players. Philip, even in the Mets' bad year, they didn't win 61 games. Like, come on. Okay, Philip, you don't have to do that anymore. I don't ask you to do that, buddy. I really don't. I really, really don't. I know I'm going to be there. You know why? Because I enjoy baseball. Would I want the Mets to win 162 games in a row? Absolutely. But it is what it is. I went to games at Citi Field and Shea Stadium when the team was never good. And I guarantee you did too. When the Wilpons said Dylan Betances was our big signing in the offseason. When Jed Lowry in 2019 was our big signing in the offseason. When they told you Rick Porcello and Waka was the big signing for our rotation. That was only a couple of years ago, guys. A couple of years ago, before Cohen. You know, look, he's 63 years old, so he saw, or at least he was alive when the Mets won their both world championships. He should be a little bit more positive than somebody like me and a lot of people in this chat that never seen one. Okay, I understand that, Philip. But who did you want? And if you give me Ohtani or Yamamoto, then you must be going senile. Go to your doctor. Because it wasn't happening. Who did you want? Blake Snell? You want to overpay for Blake Snell with those 5 innings every game? Never goes deep into a ball game? Montgomery, who at his best can be a number 2, but usually is a number 3, and giving him $180 million? Like, I don't know who you wanted. The Mets didn't have enough or have exactly what the Padres wanted for Juan Soto. You just want Cohen to spend money so it makes you feel better at the end of the day. When you want to feel better when you put your feet up at night, you want to feel better that the Mets spent money. How did you feel last year when they spent all that money, when it didn't work out? Just spend again? The fact of the matter is, he's resetting for next offseason. And by the way, the Dodgers did the exact same thing last year. They signed JD Martinez, let Turner go to the Phillies, and spend basically nothing. No, Nee. You see, here's the problem. The fact of the matter is, you get people like Philip that make problems and why Mets Twitter is the way it is. Because there's guys like Philip who is a guy who is a bandwagon fan. And I don't care what he says. Clearly, he says he won't go to games, which I don't care how you spend your money. But I can guarantee you Philip is going to turn on the game every single day on his TV. Every single day. But you don't know that, Philip. Did the Arizona Diamondbacks think that? Like, seriously. Like, are you that naive and stupid? Seriously. My God, Philip, you're embarrassing yourself in this chat. Everybody thinks you're an idiot. The 84-win Diamondbacks and a 90-win Texas Rangers team made the World Series. The 100-plus win Dodgers team, the 100-plus win Braves team didn't even get out of the first round. Okay, Philip, for the last 17 seasons. So last year we were a season ticket holder. Interesting. So you're telling me, so the last 17 seasons, so you just contradicted what you've been bitching to me about. You just said you've been a season ticket for the last 17 seasons. So that goes back to around 2004, 2005, right? Around that time. So all those losing seasons, you kept on buying season tickets. When the Wilpons kept on saying, we'll do something. We do nothing. We do nothing. Keep on saying this. Do nothing. Do nothing. 2007, 2008, didn't do enough. It's amazing. It's amazing. You just contradicted everything you just said by saying you're a season ticket for the last 17 seasons. And you know what, Philip? That's fine. I never said the Mets are making the playoffs. I said they could have a season where they could be in contention for a wild card spot, which is probably somewhere between 83 and 87 wins. And I already said this. If the rotation stays healthy, you're a 500 ball club. Because the lineup, if you look at the numbers and look at the overall numbers, are very similar to teams that are all in the mix for a wild card. Yeah, you was a season ticket holder 17 years. For the last 17 years. So you were a season ticket holder when the Wilpons owned the team. When they clearly never tried to win or do anything in the offseason. Yet, you're complaining about Steve Cohen, who spent every year he owned this team. every year, a ton of money, because he's trying to reset and make sure that the farm system, which the Wilpons never cared about, develop. And Rob, I won't, because you know what? I'm a real baseball fan. You're one of those fake fans that buy season ticket holders. You're a season ticket holder, and then you stop being a season ticket holder. It might not be because of money reasons. It's because all of a sudden, because the Wilpons never stopped you from buying season tickets, which I can say that you're an idiot. Because if you give the nonsense that you give, that this year they're not spending, look at the players they got, okay, that's fine. But you were happy-go-lucky when they were spending all this money the last 2 seasons, and you're okay with it. And that's fine. And on top of that, you were still a season ticket holder prior to coming on the team. So you were okay with the Wilpons doing nothing when Jed Lowry was your big signing, when Waka and Porcello were your big signing, when Dylan Betances was your big signing. That's what you cared about. When Eric Campbell was your cleanup hitter. Come on. My Lord. So, Jesus Luzardo trade, is it possible? I think if the Mets are willing to give up about 3 top 10 prospects that are not Williams or Gilbert, I think they would actually think about it. You know, there is a possibility that you might take another contract on as well with Luzardo that might not be team friendly for the Marlins. You know, Avisail Garcia is a guy that the Mets can take on. I know it's a little bit of money to add onto that payroll for the Mets, but it is a possibility as well. So I would be very interested to see what the package is if there's some talk. See, the problem is the Mets don't leak nothing. Rob, think back when I am thinking back. You were a season ticket over with the Wilpons, so that means you were just naive as you're calling me. So again, I won't tell you how to spend your money. Don't tell me how to spend my money. I'm going to go to games. You don't have to go to games. But I can tell you this, Philip. Guaranteed. If the Mets are having a good season next year, somehow, some way, miraculously, because the Mets seem to have miracle seasons when nobody expects it, i.e. 2015, where I bet you actually had your ass in your seat every game when they actually in the second half, right? If the Mets are having a good season next year, in a miracle, they're having a good season, and they're in contention. They make some moves at the deadline. The second half, they're right there for a playoff spot. You'll be watching the games, just like the rest of us fools. And that's okay, because that's fun. Jesus Luzardo, I would love to see the package, because the problem is the Mets don't leak anything out, which is a problem. Yeah, Philip. And he even said he shouldn't have said that. But see, here's another naive fan that thinks that a new owner taking over, the Wilpons left a mess. If you believe that 3 to 5 years looking to win a championship, it's always possible because baseball, sports in general is weird and things happen. But if you believe that, you are a dumb baseball fan. You're a dumb sports fan because it's very hard to do that. The Dodgers, with their new ownership, didn't do that. It's rare. It usually doesn't happen. So I wish the Mets would leak a little bit about what they're talking about with the Marlins, because I would love to see a package to get Jesus Luzardo, because that would be very interesting. All right, let's go to the last thing before we call it quits, which is Drew Gilbert is getting bumped up to AAA, which is right in line with moving Nimmo to left, playing Bader in center field. They're setting this up, I believe, for Gilbert. If things are not working out with Bader and Gilbert's doing well in AAA, I would not be shocked if you see Gilbert by May or June roaming center field for the Mets, because there's nothing else to prove for Gilbert. He proved what he proved in AA, which is the better minor league system. AAA are the has-beens, guys that are never going to make the majors, a lot of old guys, a lot of guys that are depth pieces that are hanging around, just doing their workouts, doing what they need to do to stay ready. But AAA isn't what it used to be 10, 15 years ago, where AAA was the spot where when you get to AAA, is really going to be telling of what type of player you're most likely going to be at the big leagues. Not always promising, but it usually shows. Now it's AA, where the best players are AA. A lot of teams now bring their players from AA to the majors. They usually skip AAA. So this tells me that it's basically almost written in stone that Drew Gilbert is probably going to be a part of this Mets roster at some point, and I would be shocked. Now, if things are working out, the Mets are winning games, Bader's looking healthy, and Nimmo's still in center field doing his thing, Marte's okay, I wouldn't be shocked if you keep Gilbert down for a little bit longer. But if Bader's not doing well, not staying healthy, don't be shocked if Gilbert's coming up because he's in AAA. He's on a holding pattern right now. And I would be shocked if he's not. If the Bader's not doing what the Mets expect him, expect Gilbert to be up. Jet Williams, invite to Major League spring training. There was a quote from Jet Williams last season, at the end of last season, where he says, my goal is to make the Major League roster in 2024. Well, the Mets are giving him an opportunity to come to Major League Baseball spring training, to the Mets spring training, MLB spring training invite. That's interesting because I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're just saying, hey, listen, we really like you. You're going to play with the big boys for a little bit, and we'll see what happens. But what if Jet Williams has a great spring training? Would you move McNeil? Is McNeil in one of these trades that we're hearing about starting pitching? Is the Luzardo trade a Beatty McNeil package going back with another prospect? That would be very interesting. I wonder with that, because that's a very interesting thing. You don't bring up Jet Williams to Major League Baseball spring training invite as one of your top prospects, because they did that to Beatty last year as well, Beatty and Alvarez. And both of them performed extremely well. They deserve to come up with the 26-man roster. They didn't until there was injuries. So it's very interesting to think. Yeah, well, it was Christian. That's the other thing. Like if Jet Williams has a crazy ass spring training, is he playing center field for the Mets on opening day and not Bader? That would be crazy. Now, who knows? Philip, you are the clown and everybody knows it. Go to another channel and waste your time there, please. You're done. My Lord, people. Like, he has to be senile, right? He has to be losing his mind. Well, James, I don't understand what you mean, because what player didn't want to come to the Mets? Ohtani didn't want the Yankees or the Mets. Yamamoto didn't want the Yankees or the Mets. So I don't know what players you're talking about. Because again, any player will go anywhere for the right price. There's nothing wrong. I'm sorry. There is no player rather go elsewhere for less money. It's just very simple. The fact of the matter is, it comes down to money. Bravo, exactly. Like if that's the case, everybody would go to the Braves. Everybody would go to the Dodgers. Like, I know everybody's going to the Dodgers, but Ohtani, it was set in stone that Ohtani was going to the Dodgers 2 years ago. Right? Yamamoto, this was clearly planned by these guys. It was obvious. They used the Mets and the Yankees, Yamamoto's camp, to get just enough money that they wanted to get from the Dodgers. It was planned like that. You can't do nothing about Tyler Glass now because there was a trade. You couldn't do nothing about Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts didn't sign with the Dodgers free agency. He was traded there, and then they gave him an extension. That's what the Mets have to do. The Mets got to start building up their farm system to have assets ready to go when a guy like a Mookie Betts might be on the market or a Juan Soto is on the market. Because when you have that guy and you trade for him and you have the option to speak to him exclusively for an extension, that's when you have the best options. And listen, let's not act like the Yankees are getting players for less money. Garrett Cole, that punk that was actually holding a sign at his press conference that he was a kid in right field holding a sign, Yankee fan till I die, right? He didn't go to the Yankees because he was a diehard Yankee fan for less money. You know why he went to the Yankees? Because they offered him the most money. So let's not act like if a team offers a player the most money, they're probably going to come. Ohtani was written in stone. Yamamoto clearly planned this situation with the Dodgers. I'm talking about a situation like Juan Soto next year. You really think Juan Soto cares if it's the Red Sox, the Mets, the Yankees? I don't know. Pick other teams that might have the money to go after him. He's going to the highest bidder. He is not taking a discount to go back to the Yankees. If the Yankees had the highest offer, he's going back to the Yankees. If the Mets do, he'll be a Met. If the Red Sox do, he'll be a Red Sox. It's very simple. It's not hard. And yeah, some people can't do New York, but I think a lot of the times, team players who are willing to come to New York, they might not like it when they get here, but let's not act like the Yankees are giving away, mediocre contracts and getting discounts to play for the Yankees. The Yankees have made the playoffs how many years in a row? How many years out of the last 30 years? 25 out of 30, 26 out of 30 years? Every free agent should go to the Yankees then. You know why? Because not all the time the Yankees are the biggest offer, right? You just saw Blake Snell. They offered him, 7 years or 5 years, $150 million, $30 million a year? He said no. He wants more money and more years. He said he wanted to go. He would like to join the Yankees. So if he really wanted to join the Yankees, why didn't he take that $30 million a year deal? You know why? Because he knows that he's going to get more. And there's a possibility that he might go to the Angels that are not competitors at all. So he's going to take the money. And if he goes to the Angels, is he trying to win? Because you can't tell me if he takes that Yankee deal that it's not a pretty damn good deal and he has a chance to win. Why didn't he do it then if he wanted to be a Yankee? Because he knows he can get more money on the open market. It's just simple. Teams don't get discounts for free agents. Teams get discounts for players that they still have under contract when they want to sign them to an extension. That's when they get a discount or have a chance of getting a discount. Look at the Braves. You think the Braves would be where they are if they couldn't sign these guys to extensions? Absolutely not. So, guys, that's the end of another Mets Hot Stove. It was a very interesting one. I do apologize that I got into a rant a little bit with Philip, but it's those type of fans that I can't stand. I'm not saying you need to be overly optimistic for the season. I would never say that to you. But to realize what happened last year with all the problems, all the injuries, all the down seasons, and they won 75 games. They were 6 games under 500. With all that happening, you're going to tell me they could at least be a 500 team just by that? Interesting. We'll see. So, Bravo, so I'm glad you came on because I brought you up in JL as a point is that you guys are supposed to hate me. Brave fans, Dodger fans, Yankee fans. I talk about this all the time. I'm rolling up on 5,500 subscribers. Oh, there's probably about 1,500 subscribers, maybe more, that are not fans of the Mets that are subscribers of this channel. And the only thing I can say to that, and that I think the reason is because I'm fair with my team. Do I have a homer in me? Every fan has a little bit of a bias towards their towards their team a little bit. But I'm usually fair with my team. I critique my team all the time. I got portrayed as a negative Met fan when I started this channel. Right? The fact of the matter is that I try to be fair with this team, but you also have to be a little bit realistic about what was the problems last year and why they won 75 games. And look at this season. And it's very hard to repeat a season that they had last year with all the injuries, all the down seasons, and think it can be the same thing next year. Now, possibly, of course. But you could say the same thing about a really good team. Do you think Brave fans looking to last year and having a great season look into next year and saying, 92-win team? No, they're not saying that. You can have hope as a fan. You can be realistic. You can be stupid and naive like Philip. But the fact of the matter is, you have to remember that there's teams that were 2 teams in the World Series last year that won 90 games and 84 games, and nobody picked them to make the World Series. Not a lot of people picked Texas. A lot of people chose the Astros. A lot of people chose a lot of other teams. Not really the Rangers. And they didn't even do it with the team they bought in the offseason. Where was DeGrom? They had Scherzer and Montgomery, 2 trades. You got to remember that stuff. The fact of the matter is, you just got to be in it by the deadline, and anything can happen. Remember, the Cubs, the Giants, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks and the Padres were all in the mix for the 3rd wildcard spot, and some of them were for the 2nd wildcard spot as well. We have to remember that. So, with that said, another Mets hot stove in the books. Next hot stove will probably be Monday. Any breaking news with the Mets, I'll go live, even at work, as I did with the Sean Manaea signing. Of course, I'm going to be doing videos, whatever situations, things I hear or what I see. Maybe I'll do a video on that. So we'll see what happens, guys. Enjoy your weekend. NFL wildcard weekend, super wildcard weekend, Saturday and Sunday. My Cowboys play on Sunday. We got a big-ass snowstorm, freezing temperatures with the Bills and Miami. So enjoy the NFL Sunday if you're a football NFL weekend if you're a football fan. Let's see what the Mets do. Let's see if Soler comes to the Mets, and let's see what bullpen pieces they get or another starting pitcher. With that said, everybody have a great night. Another Mets hot stove in the books. Have a great night, guys. Let's go Mets. See you next time, guys.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets